Andy, there are some mornings that's like real easy to start off on topics. There's other mornings there's just a lot out there, but nothing I like overly on front of your face. Like we've got to start with this, we got to do that. We've got a lot of things that we can go through today. So, anything on your mind to start with, Andy?
No, Dave, I'm excited. I've got my England jersey on today. I'm getting excited for the Euro tournament to happen here. We're going to see some exciting soccer over the next month as the European teams duke it out for supremacy. So we'll see what happens. I'll be cheering for England. We'll see if France can do better. Germany, we'll see where it goes. But I'm excited about that. But otherwise, Dave, it's Wednesday. Glad to be here with you this week, and gonna miss you next week. So just enjoying the time I have.
Oh, that's always that's sweet of you, Andy. I still can never get into the soccer thing. I mean, as much as I enjoy watching Ted Lasso, and that whole plot line, I just can't get into the soccer.
It's
Do you do you have a
it's very old
favorite?
school American of you. You know, growing up, that was always like it's
Yeah.
hard for Americans to embrace soccer. I think that's changed with younger athletes, but I think it's kind of generational.
Somebody had a take, Andy, that I was listening to, where if like professional running backs who like their lifeline in the NFL is like 3 to 5 years or
Yeah,
something, and they don't even really make the best top money anymore either. Like Saquon Barkley is making 12 million or something, very not a ton of money. The Giants effectively let him go because they didn't want to pay him that much.
yeah,
But if he were a I don't know the best player on a English Premier League team, he'd be making what he made in his NFL career in like 2 or 3 seasons.
yeah.
And then he could like then transfer to the MLS and make some exorbitant amount of money. Like Messi right now. I mean, he's old, like he's older. I mean, he's still great, but like he's making $20 million a year to
Yeah.
just for the Miami fans, right? I mean, so maybe that is the shift that needs to happen. It's like take some of these athletes and say, hey, yeah, you could have a 3 year window in the NFL, or you could be making all this money in the Premier League and such.
Yeah, I mean, and that's always kind of been the argument for U.S. soccer is that the reason we're not better is because our best athletes don't play soccer, right? They play everything else first. And so we don't have our nation's greatest athletes playing soccer as so many other countries do. And if they did, you're right. I mean, whether it's Saquon or or any number of, I mean, yeah, running backs are a great, thought on that. But there's so many dynamic athletic players, especially if you look across the NFL. I think we could have a great team. It's just not our focus. But you're right. Maybe some moms and dads are looking around out there and saying, "Hey, if my boy's not going to make it in the you know pro baseball or pro football, maybe it's time to really lean into getting him to be a soccer star. That would be phenomenal." So I mean, right now today, our best players are marginal players in Europe's best leagues. I mean, there may be a backup, or something
Yeah.
with the best players we have. So you're right. I mean, America's greatest athletes aren't playing soccer, unfortunately. But you know what? It makes for great football, so I'm okay with it. But football in one hand, football in the other, they're both great games.
All right. Well, yeah, that's it. It's all the footing of the ball, right? So, all right, Andy, let's get into our 3x7s
Right.
and go from here. I'm gonna go starting the clock now. Um, and then what we'll do, Andy, is we'll just go on the first topic is pop culture. I'm gonna start with the Acolyte update, and
Right.
I won't talk about the show because I want you to appreciate Acolyte and go through it. The third episode was a flashback episode. We kind of knew an episode like this was coming based on the plot line. I thought it was fine. It wasn't very, there wasn't a whole lot of excitement necessarily. It gave the effectively the origin story for some of the main characters and how they got to this point of the first two episodes. It's fine. Like it's good background. But you have an 8 episode series here. You don't know if it's going to go to a second season. And you effectively wasted one on an origin story on a couple characters that aren't really like in the large scheme of things, it wasn't necessary. And so that got me to thinking, Andy, are we overrating origin stories? Like when we first saw Darth Vader in New Hope, did we sit there and say what drove him to where he was? Like, how did he get to become Darth Vader? Yeah, maybe some people did at some point in their time, but we didn't care. you know. And I think the superhero movies really kind of got us into this thing where we had to understand how these people got to these superpowers or what. Can't we just pick up a story and go? I mean, maybe that's something you do in season three or something of a show. But the third episode of a new series where you have the old Republic, which is a great canvas. Like I said this last week, you have this amazing canvas and you can explore all of these things. And we're three episodes in, we still don't really know who the
Yeah.
big bad guy is. It's supposed to be the Sith, right? But we still don't know where that's coming from, and we've wasted an episode. So, what are we overrating origin stories, Andy?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there. I think, I mean, one, I think there is, I think we've talked about this before, a lot more general interest in sort of showing the nature of the villain, right? And oftentimes showing they're not all bad, right? Just like Darth Vader, right? There's something that happened, and I think it's more interesting to see develop, and similar with the good guys, like you kind of want to know, how did this person become this person? And I always go back to my old comic book days. Dave, you mentioned superhero movies, like those were my favorite comics. Like I always loved the origin story comic book when they'd recreate a series and they add a new twist in. How did Steve Rogers become Captain America, a little bit differently in this telling of the story or whatever. I always found it to be really fun. I think you've got a good point though with limited time, right? Is 1/8 of your series going to be dedicated to maybe an unnecessary background or I think it's a mix. You've got to kind of see maybe it ties into the Sith future that you're anticipating for the series. Like maybe there's a connection there that's important setting up. I don't know. I tend to like them, even though they can be a little bit non-critical to the storyline. I think it's just fun to know how did this character become this character. So I enjoy them, even if they take away some of the valuable limited time for a show. But I can see the argument, Dave. I mean, you're right. You walk in as Episode 4 Star Wars, Darth Vader's the best villain of all time, and he's just awesome, crushing people, destroying his own son, chasing him down. So is it critical? No, but did you want to know why Darth Vader was Darth Vader and why was he, Luke's father? Kind of want to know. I mean, you kind of want to know what's going on there. So, yeah, I can go either way. I appreciate the argument, but again, as a comic book fan, I do enjoy a good origin story. I've got to admit that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with like ultimately getting to the origin story. I'm just not sure if it's needed now. And like I don't think we should be in a rush to get there. Let's show how bad these people are and let's just I mean, can't we appreciate a good villain, Andy? I don't know. I mean, it seems um I don't know. I yes, I did want to see ultimately when Darth Vader got up there and said, "No, I am your father."
Yeah,
And like, of course, I want to see like then I want to know like how the hell did that happen? But that's the end of Empire. That's like
yeah,
3.5 hours into something. We have an episode you're in the old Republic. Tell the story of the old Republic. Like in I don't know. I'm just questioning the decision here. Now, the episode was fine. I mean, I thought the episode did a good job of laying out what they did there and how they got to it. I'm like creatively again, I would like to have seen them go in a different direction. But am I going to be taking to social media and expounding how much I hate the Acolyte like some people do? No, I'm not. I'm enjoying it. I just I'd like to see. I would have preferred a different option there. So I don't know. That's just my takeaway on origin stories because I just feel like we're in such a rush to tell that we forget the rest of the story, which is really cool.
yeah, yeah. Well, here we are, David, almost episode 100. We still haven't given our origin stories, so there's something in the anticipation, right? So maybe we'll eventually tell those stories too. But here we are, just jumping right into it, thrice weekly, and we seem to be operating without an issue. So we'll see, we'll see.
You said thrice. That's pretty impressive, Andy.
Thank you,
So,
thank you.
okay. All right, Andy, I don't want to belabor the topic anymore. We don't need to go to 7 minutes on these things. So we're going to call this one at 6 minutes, Andy. I think we're doing a pretty good job on these three by
I think
sevens.
so too. I think so too.
All right, so I'm going to cancel that one. I'm going to restart another one. Andy, let's dig into the world of politics. Yesterday, Hunter Biden was convicted of three felony charges of lying or misrepresenting himself on a federal form regarding a gun license. again, I equate this one and the Trump one to like getting Al Capone on tax evasion, right? Like they both sides wanted bigger charges, both sides wanted bigger things, but let's get them for what they can and go from there. But I think it brings up an interesting point. There was a lot of pictures about President Biden hugging his son and them being upset and all this other stuff. So I think we can dismiss some of this like political witch hunting that we know are driving both of these cases. But at the same time, the law prevailed, right? The individuals were convicted of felony offenses, rightfully so by juries. But this brings up another thing about President Biden. His approval numbers suck right now. I mean, they're some of the lowest of any president, and they're in the low 30s. And again, we're getting the calls for Joe should step down. President Biden should no longer be running for president. We have the adage of the only person who could lose to Trump is Biden, and the only person who could lose to Biden is Trump. You have two just idiot candidates. If they would have put up any other candidate here, they would have, I think, soundly beaten their octarian or their old candidate opposition. So, what do you think when you hear these calls for stepping down for Biden?
Well, I mean, there's so much to cover what you just said. I mean, on the stepping down piece, I mean, look, we both shared the preference for other candidates, better candidates, younger candidates. And it hasn't changed. Yes, but one, Joe Biden's not going to step down, right? He wouldn't have run if he was going to step down. He's not going to step down. Two, these calls come as he's maybe taken his best lead in the polls most consistently in at least quite some time. He's since Mr. Trump's conviction, Joe Biden has gotten a little bump, and he's got a pretty consistent lead. Organizations like 538 are saying, hey, by our numbers, Biden wins the election. So he's not in a bad place, despite the, I think, sort of bogus story that he's going to lose the election. Like that storyline doesn't really pan out with reality right now today. But just to go back for a minute, Dave. I mean, one, I don't care about Hunter Biden, right? I mean, Hunter Biden's not running for office, right? Hunter Biden's he's the president's son, but he's just a guy. Like this whole storyline has never been anything that I've even really picked up any interest in because like I don't care what happens to Hunter Biden. There's criminal charges against Americans all over the place. If they're not relevant to me, they're not relevant to me. He's not running for the White House, and his trials doesn't impact my interest or non-interest in Joe Biden as a candidate. Two, people are having a lot of fun with Hunter Biden. One, the guy seems to be living, the best life he can, enjoying himself right from his Pokemon prostitute cocaine-filled hotel rooms. The guy's having a fun time. I'm not here to judge him. I mean, but realistically, like for all the beating up that he gets, like people sometimes forget what a rough life the kid's had. Yeah, he's had a blessed life in many ways. His father's a famous politician, blah blah blah. But I mean, the guy lost his mother. When I think he was around 30 when that happened. He lost his older sister. He lost his half brother. It's not the best story for him or Joe Biden. There's been a lot of tragedy in that family, and the guys. I mean, I think he's probably got some baggage and issues, like a lot of people do. Like there's it's kind of rough to live through that mess of a life and have to do so publicly now that his dad's a president. But I don't really care. I mean, I don't really care. But I think some of the funniest things I've seen, like the whole thing, rather than Joe Biden stepping down, I've seen a lot of comments of, hey, you know what? Hunter Biden shouldn't be eligible for higher office. Hey, I won't vote for Hunter Biden for president because he's a convict, right? So a lot of people are sort of turning it around being like, okay, so Hunter Biden's been convicted. He shouldn't be president of the United States. He's not running for president of the United States, but there is a convict that is running for president of the United States and sort of turning it back around on Donald Trump. Anyway, it's sad to see people's lives rake through this kind of pain just for running for higher office, whether it's Hunter Biden or any other public official. That's a lot of reason why good people don't want to run for office because like your life just gets wrecked. I'm like, are you so hungry to serve? Usually not. Are you so hungry for power and sort of notoriety that you're willing to go through that? That's how we get the garbage politicians that we have, right? So our incessant just like tearing down of people is a dangerous sport, and it gives us the absolute worst politicians we can have. So no, Joe Biden's not going to step down. He realistically he shouldn't step down. unrelated to what's happening with his son Hunter Biden, and I don't care about what's happening with Hunter Biden really. It's just a mess. Like if these are the storylines we're heading into this election season, like where are the issues, where are the real differences, who's going to make a positive change, for the United States of America? That's the story we need to be talking about, not, like
Well, that's
I want to see
exactly
more. I want to see more Hunter Biden screwing with Pokemon in the room. I want more of that, Dave.
that's the point I was going to get into is like what these things are distractions from like the issues. What are the issues? Like again, I think Biden has a legitimate platform to run on. Like he's done the infrastructure bill. He's done a lot of other good things here. Has he failed in some other areas? Yeah, he absolutely has. I mean, but let's run on the issues. I mean, I don't know, Andy, did you see like the Trump's Nevada platform or like speech? Like the guy's all over the place. I mean,
Yeah,
he's talking about electric cars, electric boats, getting electrocuted with
sharks.
sharks and all sorts. Hey, everybody, if you want a fun listen, actually, it's not a fun listen because you got to listen for like over an hour of just bullshit of this guy rambling on. If you want to see whether what you're voting for, just watch that campaign rally. I mean, it's atrocious, but
Yeah.
he just went all over the place. And if you want to talk about issues, let's go on the issues. Let's. But again, this is going to devolve into the Biden crime family or the federal convict Trump and how you do that. So, any thoughts on this, Andy? We've got a couple seconds left. We could go over just a second if you have one.
No, I'm yes, but I'm not going to say it. I'll say it for another day, Dave. I'm good. I'm good. I've
All
exhausted
right.
my political interest for the day.
Yeah, that's enough of our political interests
Yep.
as we go through. All right, Andy, let's do this grab bag type of thing. A lot of fun things that we've seen on the internet over the last couple of days. I want to call one thing real quick. One story about Starbucks. Starbucks is declining. The prices are going up, and people I think are drawing a line at where I'm not going to pay $6 for that latte anymore. And again, there could be a lot of reasons for that, but it's putting Starbucks in a very precarious position about where their revenues and such. Are you a $6 latte guy, Andy?
So I won't buy a coffee like on a normal day. Like I won't go get a coffee on a daily basis. I make my own coffee. I drink a lot of coffee. I'm cheap in that sense. I wouldn't pay for it. But if I'm on the road, like I'll stop by Starbucks and grab a coffee. Like I don't mind that, right? So I don't think it's worth $6. But on a road trip, I'll do it. If I'm meeting up with somebody for work or something like that, I don't mind having a cup of coffee. It's good coffee. Like I enjoy a good, gigantic, piping hot skim latte with an extra shot of espresso. See, like, I mean, there's, like I can enjoy it. I can enjoy it, but
Okay.
like nobody's forcing anybody to pay $6, right? I mean, Starbucks can charge $10 for a cup of coffee. If you're still going to go buy it, that's on you. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
So it's
This is giving me faith back in the American people, Andy, that like at
yeah,
some point you're going to draw a line. And I think this is where companies, get into a lot of dangers. They keep abusing like that price to treat trying to get that extra profit. And at some point, you got to draw the line. I saw an interesting statistic. It was from like 1950. They tracked one of these like how like fast food restaurants. How do they progress over the years? Like A&W used to be the big one,
yeah,
obviously back in
yeah,
the 50s, and now it's but like just to see obviously McDonald's, but Starbucks was like one of the top ones. And there's Starbucks on every corner in a major
yeah.
city, literally adjacent corners sometimes. And so it brings me back on some of that faith. Andy, another story about AI is coming out, and basically AI, like these machine learning and these models are consuming so much information so quickly. And again, you have to feed the machine in order to get good results, right? But they're consuming so much so fast that there's a fear that, if I read this story correctly, there's a fear that the content is going to dry up pretty soon.
Yeah.
And so thoughts on AI? Again, this is feeding into your fears, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting perspective. I hadn't really thought about till I read that article. That there's only so much out there, and AI is consuming sort of the available information on the internet, giving us garbage already. And so our capacity to like put out more information is destroyed by its ability to absorb information. So is AI done getting smarter or dumber? Depending on how you want to argue it.
Yeah.
Maybe, and maybe setting some realistic limits. And so that's an interesting sort of challenge for how do you keep improving these systems. Now, there's obviously a lot of room for improvement, but sort of the AI frenzy that's around, there might be a reasonable limit to where it can go, how quickly, and some are even, there's some comments as Apple had their big event this week and announced, some partnership with OpenAI and ChatGPT. Some people are sort of looking at that and saying, "Hey, ChatGPT just got appled, right?" And sort of Apple put in this small little box that's basically making them a dumb content provider that can easily be squashed anytime Apple wants. It's interesting to see everybody sort of just manage the AI excitement. Again, there's a lot of valuable use for AI, but maybe it's a little bit more specific than some of the just nonsense we've seen. There's another good story this week on AI talking about BNN, the sort of AI scraping mess of a news network that was, for anybody that ever used Google Alerts the last 2 years, for a while was just blowing up all over the place. Google Alerts, and it was a mess, and then it's dead because it was putting out garbage content. So AI has value and potential, but it's also a lot of garbage. I think the idea of a content limit is very interesting. It's an interesting challenge between the energy consumption, content limitations, telling us to put glue on our pizza, and all the other things we've talked about. It's an interesting time to see this, rush to technology and excitement, and what are the realistic applications and use cases for it in a positive way. There are plenty, but that's not what day to day people are using it for, right? People are using it to write their articles, essays, school papers, etc. And there's going to be limits to that. So I think it is interesting. Interesting. Just like crypto, there's great potential in blockchain. There's some limitations in useful application. Technology is awesome, but often goes through some pretty sucky periods too. It's interesting to watch this happen.
Yeah, I think with especially the concern with some of this disinformation and so on and so forth too is if you start consuming more disinformation because the real stuff is not as real anymore, then what is the output being? And I think there's a lot of concerns around there. So challenges ahead, perhaps for some of that. Andy, last story, last grab bag topic here. Are you following any of this Justice Alito stuff, Andy?
I
Um,
am. Yeah.
there's been the flag work, then there's news over the weekend about a person who portrayed themselves to be a religious conservative at a Supreme Court event, and recorded some videos. This is not a liberal thing. The Republic or the conservatives also do this. They try to trap Democratic politicians into saying things on file and
Yeah.
then releasing that. And so, what's your thoughts on Justice Alito and some of his comments?
Well, I mean, to his wife's comments, really, I think
Yeah,
just to keep it short, just like what bullshit, right? I mean, now people say things that caught on camera. It's unfortunate, sometimes you say things you wouldn't say publicly if you knew you were speaking publicly, and that's unfortunate. I don't like people to sort of secretly record people, but her sort of whining and crying, right? I mean, I made a little meme out of this yesterday and shared it because it's such nonsense. Because she's complaining that she has to look across the lagoon at the pride flag for the next month.
yeah.
Nobody's holding your head, right, staring at the pride flag across your lagoon. Quit your bitching. Just look the other way if you don't like. No, like, so what? If somebody comes to hang a flag of whatever interest it is, I have no sympathy for her. It's a lousy comment, whining. Not a good look for somebody who's talking about wanting to flag, fly their Jesus flag, right? Being so non-compassionate and kind. Yeah, that's a whole nother story, Dave. But a lot of trouble coming from that corner for Justice Alito. His wife's giving him a lot of grief right now. It's garbage. It's garbage.
Yeah, we're going to go over on this topic because I want to say something there too. It's like, look, it's not like there are the Pride. It is Pride Month. There's a lot of people who have flags out. There's a lot of companies that are sponsoring Pride activities, and they change their logos. They do a lot of it's not on every street corner. It's like I'm looking out my window right now, Andy, and I don't see nary a pride flag out there. So let's quit your bitching a little bit here. And again, this is why we're here in this country. Again, I think it also goes back to my point why we need term limits even for Supreme Court justices. Like your tired views on things, they just don't need to last on the court for your lifetime.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's kind of that's just where I'm getting a little old on some of that stuff as we go through it. But again, it is. I think the last thing I'll just say on this real quickly, Andy, is who the fuck's like a stranger comes up to you and you're going to espouse all your
Yeah.
value, like your values to them? What the fuck are you like? Think about what you're doing for 1 minute. Even like Roberts and Alito were saying things that were caught on tape, and then now they weren't as bad as the wife, but like. Come on. I mean, use a little common sense here. Maybe get to know somebody before showing your true self here, Andy.
Yeah, yeah. Martha Ann has no sympathy for me, Dave. And you're right. I mean, but it goes back to like, if she wants to fly whatever flag she wants to fly, like that's her
Yeah,
prerogative. She can do it. You don't have to like tear down others, right? So just like what we're seeing with Israel and Gaza right now, like if you want to fly one flag or the other, like that's fine. That's your prerogative. If it offends your neighbor, that's on them, right? But you don't have the right to go and tear it down. If you
yeah.
don't have like a flag to counter the message, that's fine. If you want to get in a flag wars, like that's your business. You know what I mean? But it's kind of nonsensical and a waste of time and energy. Again, it's a news story that I really don't care about. I'm following just because it's such a stupid one to me.
Yeah.
But it's like, is this really the like? There's so much else to cover, but we cover this garbage because again, we're all looking just for political points, whether it's Martha Ann Alito or Hunter Biden. Like honestly, don't really give a shit about either one of them. Like I said, Dave, I'm here for the Pokemon prostitutes cocaine sex room. That's what I want. That's how we make America great again.
All right, all right. I think that's probably a good place to stop. I'm going to stop the timer. Andy, I wanted that to go negative because I wanted to say like, hey, we can go break our own 7 minutes there sometimes if we have something to say. So we always have a lot to say, and you're listening to it. So thank you. All right, Andy. Anything else? We're looking forward to the rest of this week. We got a one more podcast on Friday. Anything else you got look on the agenda for this week, Andy?
No, Dave, I think we'll keep going through and taking it as it comes and getting ready for your little out of office time. I'll just say we can get into the kid cicada video, but man,
Oh
if you
yeah.
haven't seen, listener, if you haven't seen these wonderful kids in Chicago, dealing with cicada invasion 2024. This poor kid screaming on his bike is just the cutest thing to me. So I'll share that when I post this later. It's just so funny. So thank goodness we don't have that here. I don't know how it is in North Carolina, Dave, but we're pretty cicada free this time around. We've had our fair share. So I'll be on cicada watch the rest of the week, Dave.
Yeah, be on Cicada Watch, and I'll be on watch for politicians denying that they said certain things in public and then trying to walk those things back. So I'll be trying to watch that. But if we got a couple good comedies, watch the Trump Vegas stump speeches for an hour. Watch Mar X Q bitch or QBH.
Yeah,
Get up there too, comparing Trump to Jesus. I mean, you can do a lot of things like that. So fun stuff.
yeah. We don't even guess. I saw that, was going to comment on it, and just can't.
Why, Andy? Why? So, all right, Andy, I think that wraps us up for this week. With that, I'll catch up with you next time.